Let's talk tariffs, a word that might sound dry or technical at first, but in reality, it shapes the price tags on everything from the car you drive to the cheese you put on your sandwich. A tariff is simply a tax placed on goods that come from other countries. The idea is to make those foreign products more expensive, so shoppers are nudged to buy items made closer to home. Picture this: imported French cheese suddenly costs a small fortune. Overnight, American cheddar starts looking like a bargain, and shoppers might switch their loyalty. This is what economists call protectionism, building a kind of financial wall to shield homegrown industries from foreign competition, hoping to keep local businesses thriving. During the Trump administration, tariffs weren't just a policy. They became headline news, sparking debates across dinner tables and boardrooms alike. President Trump argued that depending on foreign steel and aluminum put America's security at risk, and that something had to be done to protect critical industries. Using a rarely invoked 1962 law, he imposed a hefty 25% tariff on imported steel, and a 10% tariff on aluminum from nearly every country, aiming to give American producers a fighting chance. The goal? To protect American jobs, keep factories humming, and revive industries that many felt had been left behind by globalization. But trade isn't a one-way street. When one country raises barriers, others often respond in kind. Other countries quickly hit back, announcing their own tariffs on American goods, turning a policy move into a global standoff. Suddenly, iconic American products like Harley-Davidson motorcycles and Kentucky bourbon became more expensive for customers overseas, threatening sales and jobs back home. Protecting one industry often meant putting others at risk. Jobs in car making, appliances, even beer brewing, which relies on imported aluminum for cans, suddenly faced new challenges. Companies found themselves squeezed by higher costs, and many had no choice but to pass those costs on to everyday consumers. The debate exploded. Steelmakers and their workers cheered the new protections, but manufacturers who relied on imported materials and consumers facing higher prices groaned in frustration. The economic tug-of-war didn't just play out in factories and stores, it landed in the Supreme Court, where the real fight over who controls trade policy began. Tariffs, it turned out, were about much more than just taxes or trade. They were about power, politics, and who gets to call the shots in America's economy. And that's where the story really takes off, because in a trade war, every decision sends ripples through the entire world. The Supreme Court showdown wasn't about whether tariffs are good or bad. It was about who gets to decide. Does the president have the power to launch a trade war alone, or does Congress hold that authority? In a 6-3 decision, the court struck down the tariffs, saying the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate trade and taxes. The 1962 law was too vague, giving the president unfettered discretion, far too much power. The majority ruled that national security can't be a catch-all excuse for tariffs on friendly nations. 3 justices dissented, arguing the president needs flexibility, but the majority's view prevailed. The decision reasserted the separation of powers. Congress is the boss on trade. The era of unilateral presidential tariffs was over, at least for now. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves through the heart of the American economy, setting off a chain reaction that few could have predicted. Almost overnight, the economic map was redrawn, as trade routes shifted and global supply chains scrambled to adapt to the new reality. The biggest winners: American businesses that rely on steel and aluminum, car makers, construction companies, appliance manufacturers, and even craft brewers suddenly found themselves with a competitive edge. With tariffs gone, their costs dropped, profits soared, and for the first time in years, there was hope that prices for everyday goods might actually fall for consumers. Importers, too, had reason to celebrate, as they eyed the possibility of refunds on billions paid in duties, and looked forward to smoother, cheaper imports. But for domestic steel and aluminum producers, the decision was a gut punch. Their protective bubble vanished, leaving them exposed to fierce, global competition. In places like Pittsburgh and Gary, the fear of factory closures and job losses became all too real, as decades-old industries faced an uncertain future. Steelworkers braced for layoffs, while auto workers and others in manufacturing hoped for greater job security as their employers grew more competitive on the world stage. The ruling didn't just change policy, it shifted the fortunes of entire communities from bustling cities to small towns, already struggling to stay afloat. In the world of global trade, there are rarely solutions that make everyone happy. Every gain comes with a loss, and every victory leaves someone behind. The economic roller coaster is real, with wild ups and downs, and for many, the ride is far from over. For every job lost in steel, more may be gained in industries that use it, but the transition is never easy for those caught in the middle. The stakes are high for workers on both sides as the nation grapples with the true cost and the uncertain promise of change. What does this mean for you? For millions of Americans, the impact of tariffs isn't just a headline, it's something you feel every time you shop, fill your gas tank, or pay your bills. For years, tariffs acted as a hidden tax, quietly raising prices on everything from cars and appliances to the soup cans in your pantry. These extra costs often went unnoticed, but they added up, straining household budgets and making everyday life just a bit more expensive. With tariffs gone, prices should start to ease, though not overnight. It takes time for these changes to work their way through the system, but shoppers may soon notice a little relief at the checkout counter. Lower raw material costs will slowly ripple through the supply chain, making it cheaper to produce goods. Over time, this can lead to better deals for consumers and help keep inflation in check, benefiting everyone from families to small businesses. For consumers, it's like a small tax cut, freeing up money for other things, maybe a family night out, or saving for a rainy day. Every dollar saved at the store can go towards something else you care about. The job market, though, is a mixed bag. Steel and aluminum workers face layoffs and uncertainty as their industries adjust to new competition and lower prices. But at the same time, industries that use those metals, like car makers, construction firms, and appliance manufacturers, are poised to grow and hire more workers thanks to lower input costs. The steel industry employs about 140,000 people, a significant number, but just a fraction of the workforce affected by these changes. In contrast, steel-consuming industries, like auto manufacturing, construction, and machinery, employ millions across the country, supporting entire communities. Tariffs protected a few, but hurt many more. Small businesses, in particular, struggled with higher costs and tough choices. Now, manufacturing sectors from autos to construction can expand, invest, and compete globally, opening up new opportunities for American workers. There will be pain in some towns, especially those that relied heavily on protected industries. Change is never easy, and some communities will need time and support to adapt. But the net effect on jobs is expected to be positive, as new opportunities emerge, and the broader economy benefits from lower costs and increased competitiveness. The Supreme Court's decision is a turning point for American wallets and workplaces, signaling a shift toward a more open and dynamic economy. The ripple effects will be felt for years, shaping the way we work, shop, and build our future together. The world's reaction, relief, America's allies, Canada, Mexico, the EU, are ready to lift their retaliatory tariffs. American exports like bourbon and motorcycles will get a second chance abroad. For global supply chains, the decision brings stability and predictability. China welcomes the move, hoping for less confrontation and more cooperation. The US now looks more like a nation of laws, not presidential whims. This shift helps America rebuild trust with allies and focus on real trade challenges, like China's unfair practices. The message: America is back at the table, working with its friends. At its core, this saga is about who controls trade, the president or Congress. The Constitution gives Congress the power to tax and regulate commerce. Over decades, Congress handed some of that power to the president for flexibility, but the Supreme Court just slammed the brakes, saying only Congress can impose tariffs of this scale. The ruling closes a dangerous loophole that let presidents bypass lawmakers. Now, Congress must take responsibility for trade policy. The executive branch is chief diplomat, not chief tax collector. The power to shape America's trade future is back where it belongs, with the people's representatives. The Supreme Court's ruling left a power vacuum. Now Congress must act. Lawmakers are split. Some want to permanently rein in presidential power. Others want to give the president clear authority to fight unfair trade. Proposals range from requiring defense certification for tariffs to fast-track congressional votes. Protectionists argue the U.S. needs tools to defend against economic threats. President Biden seeks a bipartisan deal, limited, well-defined presidential authority, but with Congress in charge. The coming debate will pit free trade against protectionism. The outcome will shape U.S. economic policy for decades. The stakes couldn't be higher. The Trump-era tariffs are history, but the real story is a shift in power and priorities. Industries using steel and aluminum celebrate, producers brace for tough competition. Globally, the US can mend fences and reset trade relations. Congress now owns trade policy. No more sideline complaints. The big question: will America champion open trade or retreat behind tariff walls? The Supreme Court gave Congress a choice. The future of US trade and the global economy depends on what they do next. The answer will define America's role in the world for years to come.